What's up, horror lovers? Imagine being home alone on a rainy night. Just you, some leftover lasagna, and something watching you from the dark. Yeah, this is one of those stories. The kind that'll make you check your windows tonight. So grab a blanket, turn off the lights, and let's dive into the nightmare of Max and the Pigman. Max was just your regular suburban kid. Quiet house, safe neighborhood, loving parents. But when his folks rushed out one stormy night to take care of his grandma, Max was left home alone. At first, it was fine. Just some rain tapping at the windows and the comforting buzz of the microwave. He heated up his mom's lasagna, grabbed a soda, and broke the one rule he loved breaking, eating in his room. Halfway through his late-night feast, he noticed movement outside his bedroom window. A figure, still, watching, cloaked in a hood so deep it swallowed any hint of a face. Max blinked, heart pounding. He grabbed his phone to snap a pic, but the figure was gone, just like that. Figuring it was his imagination, he shrugged it off, finished his food, and went to sleep. Rookie mistake. Next morning, bright, sunny, deceptively normal. The fridge had a note from Mom. Mow the lawn, water the plants, do your homework. Just chores. But even with the sun out, Max couldn't shake the creeping feeling that he was being watched. Again, like something was hiding just out of view. Smirking, trying to distract himself, Max flipped on the TV. News was on. Bad idea. Urgent. More disappearances reported in the city, the anchor warned. A shaky witness screamed, "It wasn't human. You have to believe me." Max's stomach dropped. His mind jumped back to the hooded figure outside his window. Was it connected? Shaking off the fear, Max decided to shower and finish his schoolwork. By evening, hunger returned, sharp and gnawing. He picked up his phone to order pizza, but before he could dial, the landline rang. He hesitated, then picked up. "Hello? Who's there?" Silence. Only silence. Creeped out, Max ordered the pizza anyway. Just one large pepperoni. Normalcy. That's all he wanted. Minutes passed. The wind howled outside. Then the phone rang again. Max answered. This time, a voice. Low, rotten, whispering. "Look at me." "I'm at the window." Max turned. What he saw shattered every ounce of sanity he had left. It wasn't a man. It wasn't anything that should exist. A monstrous fusion of man and pig leered through the glass. Bloated, pink skin glistened in the rain. Yellow, lidless eyes burned red in the dark. Each breath fogged the window. Its ears twitched. It grinned, if you could call that thing a grin. Max bolted upstairs, heart trying to escape his chest. Locked himself in his room. Hid in the closet. Dialed his parents. No answer. No signal. Just muffled thunder and the sound of his own terrified breathing. He cried, quietly, until a knock came at the front door. He crept downstairs, praying it was a delivery guy. It was. Kind of. A pizza box sat on the porch. The delivery car was there too, but the driver's seat was empty. Blood smeared across the dashboard. Max slammed the door shut and ran for the landline. He barely touched the receiver when a blast of warm, foul breath hit the back of his neck. His body froze. Every instinct screamed to run, but it was already too late. The pigman was behind him, inches away. Its stench, blood, rot, something ancient filled the room. Max darted upstairs, screaming, slammed his door, locked it with a flimsy latch. Behind it, the creature growled, "Come on, kid, let me in. I promise it won't hurt much." Then the pounding began, each thud stronger, closer, hungrier. Max hid back in the closet. The doorknob twisted. Then crash! The door exploded open. Max held his breath. The creature's wet, clawed fingers brushed the closet. The world fell silent, except for the pounding of Max's heart. Then sirens. Faint but real. Police. The heavy footsteps stopped. Retreated. The pigman vanished into the night. A neighbor had heard Max scream and called the cops. They found blood, a missing driver, but no trace of the monster. Another unsolved disappearance to file away. No one believed Max, a man in a pig mask. He finally told them. He killed the driver. I just hid. They called off the shrinks, labeled him a traumatized witness. The disappearances stopped after that night. But Max, he was never okay again. He still wakes up drenched in sweat, still dreams of those red eyes at the window. He tells himself it wasn't real. It couldn't be. But sometimes, when the wind howls through the trees, Max swears he hears it whisper, "I'm still hungry." Tonight, we're diving into 3 terrifying tales that may seem like nightmares, but feel all too real. Picture this: a storm howling outside, the power flickering in something or someone creeping through your house. If you think you're safe at home, think again. It started with Lily. Just an ordinary night. Rain hammering the windows. Thunder rumbling like distant footsteps. She was curled up on the couch, half lost in a rerun when it came. That sound from upstairs. Not a creak, not a drip. No, it was sharper, more deliberate, like fingers tapping on glass. She laughed nervously. "Probably just the wind," she muttered. But the wind doesn't knock twice. With a flashlight in trembling hands, Lily ascended the stairs. The house was quieter than it should have been. No hum of electricity, no ticking of clocks. Just her own breath, short and shaky. She opened the bedroom door. Empty, but not undisturbed. The curtains were swaying and the closet door was half open, as if someone had left in a rush. Or was still inside. Suddenly, footsteps echoed from the hallway downstairs. Heavy, wet. Lily turned and froze. A figure stood at the bottom of the stairs. Tall, unmoving, eyes glowing faintly in the dark like twin embers. No face, just a mask. He moved. Fast. She screamed, bolted upstairs, locked herself in the bathroom. The door shook as he pounded it, and outside the storm screamed louder. But Lily survived. The cops arrived in time. The man was arrested. A drifter, they said, but the way he looked at her as they dragged him out, like he knew her. She never stayed alone again, not even during the day, because now she understood. The scariest monsters don't hide under beds. They ring your doorbell. Then there was Megan, a quiet Friday night, first time home alone. She'd been looking forward to it. Movies, popcorn, total freedom. But the house had other plans. At exactly 9:42 p.m., the power cut out. Total darkness swallowed the room. Her phone dead. The silence, too perfect. She braved the basement, each step creaking like it resented her presence. The air was thick, heavy, like she wasn't alone down there. She reached the breaker, fumbled in the dark. That's when she heard it, movement above. Slow, careful. Megan knew it then. Someone had entered the house. She crept upstairs, adrenaline crashing through her like a wave. But nothing. The house was normal. Too normal. She calmed down, convinced herself it was paranoia, locked the doors, checked the windows, went to bed. That was her mistake. At 3 a.m., her bedroom door rattled violently. Something was on the other side, breathing. Megan didn't scream. She slid into the closet, phone clutched tight, dialed 911, whispered her terror into the receiver. Footsteps entered her room. She could feel eyes on her. The closet door handle twitched. Then light. A flashlight beam cut through the window. The police. The figure fled. They searched the house but found nothing. No fingerprints. No forced entry. Megan's parents returned to a daughter they didn't recognize. Paranoia became her new companion. And the worst part? The intruder was never caught. And then, Sarah. The storm that night was unnatural, like the sky itself was warning her. Alone for the weekend, she tried to relax with takeout and TV. But as the wind rose, so did her dread. Rhythmic whistling echoed through the hall. Then a knock at the door. No one was there, only shadows. The power flickered. The faucet turned on by itself. Water flooding the kitchen. That's when she saw him, a figure in the corner, tall, skeletal, skin stretched thin over bone, black, bottomless eyes. She tried to scream. Nothing came out. Sarah ran for the door, but it was locked. from the inside. Her car was destroyed, flipped and mangled like a toy. She looked up, something twisted in the trees. A shape, a presence. When it fell to the ground, she thought it was a rat, until it smiled. Trapped, Sarah wandered her own home like a hunted animal. Doors she hadn't opened were now ajar. Walls whispered, and always just out of sight, the thing with the eyes. Watching, waiting. When the lights finally returned, they illuminated her worst fear. The creature stood in her living room, silent, unmoving, as if it had been waiting for the lights. Sarah lunged at it in desperation, but it vanished. And just like that, she was back on the couch as if nothing had happened. Storm outside, TV flickering, Chinese food cold. Was it real or a trick of the mind? Her parents never believed her, but she knew. Deep down, she knew. The thing in the dark didn't want to kill her. Not yet. It wanted her fear. And now, every flicker of light, every creak in the floorboards reminds her that it's still out there, waiting, watching, and it remembers her name. Tonight's tale will mess with your eyes and your mind. Ever seen someone who looks exactly like someone you love, but deep down you just know it's not them? This is a doppelganger story. And not just any story, this one's real. It happened to two teenage brothers during a blackout in Iraq. Thunder, rain, no lights, just candlelight and something pretending to be family. If you think you know your brother, think again. Ollie and I were 15 when it happened. We just moved into a new house, a big one, with echoey halls and way too many dark corners. That night, a storm rolled in violent and loud, like it was angry at the whole city. The power died, blacking out our entire street. The only light came from flickering candles, making shadows dance on the walls. We didn't think much of it. We were busy moving our stuff into our new rooms. Me and Ollie helped each other, one trip at a time, until I went alone and saw something I shouldn't have. I had just dropped off some books on my desk when I saw Ollie standing in my doorway, but something was off. He looked pale, too pale, and he had this smirk, mocking, like he knew something I didn't. I yelled, "Are you going to help or what?" But he didn't answer, just stared, smiling like he was holding in laughter. Then, without a word, he bolted across the room and leapt between the bed and the desk. My first thought? He was playing some stupid prank. I was wrong. I stormed over the bed, ready to yank him out from under it, but he was gone. The space between the bed and desk was barely big enough for a bag, let alone a person. I checked behind the curtains, under the desk, everywhere. Nothing. My heart started pounding. This wasn't a prank. It was impossible. A weird chill swept over the room. Despite the heat outside, something felt wrong. That wasn't Ollie. And whatever it was, it had vanished. I bolted from the room and ran straight to Ollie's. And there he was, holding a box, looking just as confused as I felt. "What the hell are you doing here?" he asked. That's when things got worse. He said he saw me just minutes ago. I was standing in his room, laughing at him. Then I'd run and hidden in the closet. But when he opened it, no one was there. My stomach dropped. We looked at each other, both pale now, both realizing the same thing. We each saw a doppelganger of the other. We ran to our mom, breathless and shaking. She didn't even blink. In a calm voice, she said, "It was the Koreans." In our culture, Koreans are jinn that attach themselves to people from birth. Everyone has one like a spiritual shadow, but they're not friendly. They whisper, they watch, and sometimes they mimic. And because Ollie and I are twins, she said, our Koreans must have been playing with us. We didn't think it was a game. That night, we refused to go back to our rooms. We stayed huddled in the living room with every candle we had. Every gust of wind made the flames dance violently. Every creak of the house made us flinch. We tried to laugh it off, saying it was just our imagination. But deep down, we knew something had visited us, and it knew how to look exactly like the person we trusted most. The strangest part? That mocking smirk. Both doppelgangers had it. Mine, his, the same twisted smile like they were in on a joke we didn't understand. as if they weren't just pretending. They were enjoying it, feeding on our fear, waiting, watching. And even now, thinking back, I can still see that smirk in my nightmares. Days passed, the storm cleared, life went on, but something in that house had changed. Little things started happening. Footsteps in the hall when no one was there. Doors swinging open in the middle of the night. One time, I woke up and saw someone standing at the end of my bed. I whispered, "Ollie?" But he answered from the room next door. When I looked back, the figure was gone. We started keeping the lights on at night. Mirrors made us uncomfortable. Sometimes we'd see a reflection move before we did. Mom kept blessing the house, lighting incense, whispering prayers. But it didn't stop. One night, Ollie screamed in his sleep, saying he saw me try and pull him under the bed. That same smirk, that same pale face. He woke up sweating, gasping for air. I was across the room, nowhere near him. Eventually, we moved away, but the memory stayed. And sometimes I wonder, did the Koreans stay in that house? Or did they follow us? Are they still watching, still waiting to strike when we're most vulnerable? I don't have the answer. But every now and then, I catch Ollie looking at me strangely. I ask him what's wrong. He says, "Nothing." But I know that look. It's the same one I give him, when I'm wondering if the person in front of me is really my brother. So if you ever see someone who looks like your sibling, but something feels off, trust your gut. Doppelgangers aren't just legends. They wear your loved one's skin like a mask. And sometimes, they don't just want to be seen. They want to replace you. Next time you're home alone, and your brother walks in, maybe don't say his name right away. Wait a second. Watch him, just to be sure. Because if he smirks at you like he knows a secret, run. You ever pick up a stranger on a stormy night? Yeah, don't. Just don't. Because this story, this ride, starts with a glass of scotch and ends with a shovel and a smile. Let me take you through the downpour into a mansion that smells like old secrets and introduce you to a man who's way too friendly for his own good. It was raining so hard it felt like the sky was punishing the earth. The kind of storm that messes with your thoughts and makes you hear things that aren't there. Abhishek was stuck halfway between cities, headlights carving through the darkness. He hated driving at night. His eyes betrayed him after sunset, and the rain only made it worse. The road was empty, mostly, but then a silhouette appeared, half visible, half forgotten. A tall man with an umbrella, arms stretched out, asking for a ride. Abhishek hesitated. This would be a mistake, but he stopped anyway. And just like that, the story began. The man called himself Suresh. He looked polished, too polished, tall, suited, soaked to the bone, but calm like he owned the rain. He said his car broke down, said he lived nearby, said all the right things in a gravelly voice that smelled like old books and older whiskey. Against his better judgment, Abhishek let him in. The man's hand was cold as the rain outside. They talked about the weather, about kindness, about how dangerous the world could be. Then Suresh invited him to stay the night at his home. "It's not far," he said, "and you don't want to be out in this storm." He smiled, and it felt practiced. 20 minutes later, Abhishek turned onto a smaller road. A worn sign read Nagar Haveli. Then it rose, an ancient mansion with golden domes and white walls, drenched in colonial opulence and ghost stories. It looked like it belonged in another century. As the gates creaked open, Abhishek couldn't help but be impressed. This place wasn't just old, it was proud. It had roots that curled deep into ground, wrapping around things that should stay buried. The kind of house that didn't just have history, it had memory. Inside, it was warm and glowing, like a preserved museum of forgotten grandeur. Portraits of stone-faced ancestors lined the walls, watching, judging. The furniture was regal. The fireplace roared. And yet, there was a chill that clung to the corners, something unspoken. Suresh disappeared upstairs to change while Abhishek explored the room, running his fingers along the edge of a mahogany table. Then Suresh returned, dressed in night clothes, and offered him a drink. "Scotch," he asked. 20 years old. My father's favorite. Abhishek accepted, unaware that the bottle was older than most lies. They talked about work, about fate, about legacies. Suresh told him the story of his great-grandfather, how he was a zamindar, respected but feared, how he was murdered after killing a thief in cold blood. His body was never found, Suresh said, eyes distant. Some say the mansion still remembers him. Abhishek chuckled. Sounds like a ghost story. But Suresh didn't laugh. We don't joke about these things here. That was the first real warning. And it came with a second drink. Dinner came and went, served in eerie silence. The house groaned under the weight of memory. Upstairs, Suresh showed Abhishek to the guest room. It was lavish, comfortable, too comfortable. Whatever happens, Suresh said, his voice low, don't leave your room tonight. No matter what you hear, don't ask why. Abhishek laughed nervously, but the look in Suresh's eyes turned the chuckle to ash. Then he was alone. Rain pounded the windows. The shadows stretched, and the room suddenly felt too big. The knock came at 3 a.m. 3 slow, heavy raps. Then again, Abhishek woke in a daze, confused, the scotch still lingering in his blood. He stumbled to the door and opened it. No one, just cold air and emptiness. But something brushed past his face, ice cold and invisible. Then came the banging, loud, desperate, hungry. He backed away, heart pounding, throat dry, and then silence. The kind of silence that feels like it's listening. He forgot Suresh's warning and stepped out. The corridor was darker than it should have been, as if the light had been drained from the walls. His phone flashlight barely cut through the thick black air. Suresh's room was open, bed unmade, window open, rain pouring in. But no Suresh, just emptiness and something wrong. The kind of wrong that makes your stomach twist. Abhishek turned and went downstairs, only to find the front door wide open. The house was breathing now, and it didn't like visitors. He ran outside. The rain had slowed to a whisper, but the wind screamed. Lightning flashed. That's when he saw it. A shadow near the gate. A figure. Suresh? He chased it. Another flash. It moved into the garden. Abhishek followed, bare feet slapping against wet stone, heart racing. Another flash, and there he was, Suresh, standing by a fresh grave, shovel in hand, drenched and muttering to himself. Suresh. Abhishek called. The man turned, face twisted, eyes wild. You shouldn't have picked me up, he hissed. You don't know what runs in my blood. My great-grandfather, he wasn't just a tyrant. He was a monster, and I carry his curse. Then he lunged, swinging the shovel, but it passed right through Abhishek, like slicing smoke. Suresh froze, stumbled back. What are you? Abhishek smiled. You don't need to know any more. Then he raised the tire iron and brought it down. Once. Hard. Suresh crumpled like paper, landing in the ditch he had dug himself. The rain stopped. The sky turned a pale gray. Morning was coming. But Abhishek, he wasn't waiting for it. He had other roads to travel, other monsters to meet. Because here's the thing. Not every hitchhiker is the victim. Not every smile is innocent. And not every haunted house is haunted by the dead. Sometimes it's the living you should fear. The bloodlines, the secrets, the ones who smile while digging graves in the rain. Suresh thought he was a curse. He thought wrong. The mansion would go quiet after that night. The staff would return weeks later to find the gardens untouched, the rooms collecting dust. No sign of Suresh. Just a smell, faint but persistent, like wet soil and regret. And sometimes, late at night, travelers on the road would spot a tall man in a suit waving for a ride near the gates of Nagar Haveli. But don't stop. Whatever you do, don't stop. Even if the rain's blinding and the road feels endless. Even if you're tired and the whiskey calls your name. Because the figure might smile. He might say his name is Abhishek. He might offer you a drink. And by the time you realize what's happening, it'll already be too late. This isn't just a ghost story. It's a reminder. Kindness is a coin, and you never know what side it'll land on. So next time someone asks for a ride in the dark, maybe just keep driving. And remember, in the mansion at Nagar Haveli, the dead don't rest. They wait, and sometimes they smile. Let me ask you something. Have you ever felt like your childhood held a secret so heavy, so buried, it warped your entire reality? That something was watching, waiting just beyond the glass? Tonight, we unravel a story about rain, memory, and the kind of truth that doesn't just haunt you, it inherits you. This one begins like a lot of tales do, with a single slap, one open palm across the jaw from a father who never raised his hand before or after. 40 years later, the echo of that strike still lingers, right here at the window halfway up the stairs of a creaking farmhouse, a place where something other lives just beyond the fields. And when the rain comes, it watches. You see, not all families are normal. Most think their weird habits are just that, habits, quirks. But what if those traditions weren't harmless? What if they were the only thing keeping something out? In this family, every time it rained, the rules changed. Everyone gathered in the living room, doors locked, shutters down. And Dad would just stare, not at the rain, not at the road, but at the same field 500 yards north. Silent, still, like he was waiting for a ghost to knock. Most of the time, he'd sigh, whisper, "All right," and life resumed. But every so often, the shutters dropped, and the house turned into a bunker. You don't ask questions when you're 5. You just sit real still and hope the storm doesn't notice you. One day, the rain came while the family was in town. Little Austin panicked, waiting by a shop door like the sky was about to open up and swallow him whole. That's when Mom leaned down and whispered, "That's only for home, honey." Right, only at home. Home, where the land is richer than it has any right to be. Where crops grow too fast, too thick, too perfect. Where the soil is old and greedy and full of secrets. Where the rain calls. They never found out who sold the land to Grandpa and Grandma. But they knew one thing. You don't sell it. That clause was ironclad. The family could live on it. Farm it. Raise babies and bury dogs in the yard. But never sell. Never leave. Not without giving something up. The rain had its rules. On the night it all changed, a storm came hard and sudden. Sky black at dawn, wind shaking the foundation. Shutters down, family locked in. Dad asleep in the chair. Mom asleep with little Austin curled in her lap. And that was the problem. Because when you're 7 and gotta pee, you move. He crept from her arms, past his snoring father, and out toward the stairs. Then it hit him. A pull. Something cold and weightless. Like a rope made of ice, wrapping around the chest, the spine, the soul, drawing him to the window. Through the glass, rain danced like knives. And in the field, something moved. Something huge. Something watching. And then, smack. His father's hand cracked across his face, sending him spiraling into black. He didn't wake for nearly 24 hours. When he did, the world felt wrong. Colors dimmer. Touch distant. Voices warped like underwater echoes. His father sat beside him, solemn, apologizing. "I had no choice," he said. "You cannot go to the window when it rains." "Swear it." Austin swore. But something inside him had changed. A new fear, like a parasite, was now part of him. He'd scream in his sleep, unable to explain why. And when asked what he dreamt, all he could whisper was, "It saw me." Then came the night their mother vanished. Austin and his sisters were away visiting family. Only Dad and big brother John stayed behind to tend the land. The storm hit hard, ripping trees, drowning the sky. The ancient oak outside the living room shattered the wall and blew the window clean off. Rain rushed in, and just like that, Mom was gone. No scream, no struggle, just gone. The police found nothing but a wet floor and shattered glass. Her body never recovered. And the look in John's eyes when the kids returned home, that haunted 1,000-yard stare said more than any words ever could. Grief devoured the house. Dad drank like a man trying to forget something his blood still remembered. The kids fell into silence. John withdrew, and Austin, He imagined conversations with his mother. Over and over again, he lived them until he snapped back to the empty room and remembered the truth. He was alone. No one sat with him when he woke screaming anymore. They had their own nightmares now. He didn't ask John what he saw that day, but one night in a whisper, his brother asked, "Why were you opening the window, Austin?" The boy blinked. "I wasn't. I just needed to pee." John didn't answer, but the look on his face, that said enough. 6 months passed. A rare warm day. Austin and his father worked a far fence line. Sky was clear, sun hot, until suddenly it wasn't. "Get in the car. Now!" Dad's voice was sharp, panicked. The clouds turned black in seconds, wind slapping across their faces like wet towels. Thunder cracked, loud and close. "We have to get home before the rain hits," Dad muttered, white-knuckling the wheel. "They'll know to stay inside, even if I'm not there." The old car bounced over rocks and ruts. "Austin," he said, "look at the field to the north. What do you see?" "Nothing but the gates open." Dad slammed the brakes so hard, Austin nearly flew through the windshield. And then came the coat. Dad tore it off and threw it over his son's head. "Get down. Don't move." The voice shook, fear cracking every word. "Don't look, Austin. Don't you dare look. And don't make a sound." Austin huddled under the coat, breathing in the scent of damp wool and old tobacco. Then came the scrape. Slow, metal on metal. Something was outside the car. Something dragging claws across the door, moving toward the back. His father's hand reached for the shotgun. The click of the safety off was louder than thunder. Then tap, tap, tap on the glass, right next to Austin's face. Tap, tap, lighter this time. Then a rattle on the door handle. The thing was trying to open it. Austin didn't scream. He didn't move. Because beneath the coat, something ancient inside him knew. If he peeked, if he looked, it would see him again. And this time it wouldn't stop. The rain pounded the roof, the windows, the world. Then, as suddenly as it began, silence. The rain stopped. Dad was sobbing. Austin stayed under the coat. Long after the storm had passed. Years later, the storm came for Dad. The drinking worsened. The silence deepened. He'd read Mom's diary at night. Sat alone in the dark, listening to songs she used to hum. Then one morning, it rained. Sylvie and Austin stayed in the living room, lulled to sleep by the rhythm of the drops. They woke to a shotgun blast. Rushed outside. The rain had stopped. The field was empty. Only the weapon remained, drenched and steaming on the wet grass. Dad had vanished, just like Mom. Now it's Austin's turn. His brother John called him back to the farmhouse. One last visit. Told him everything. The truth, or at least the truth as he understood it. The land was cursed, blessed, or both. The rain brought something with it. Something no one dared name. If you didn't look, if the water didn't touch you, you were safe. Mostly. But sometimes the rain wanted someone. And when it wanted, it took. Just like that. The family had a pact. Never sell. Never speak of it to outsiders. And never, ever open a window when the rain came. Each generation passed down the rules. Some stayed. Some fled. John had had enough. He was leaving the country. For good. And with tears in his eyes, he left the land to Austin. To do what he would. To carry the weight. So now here he sits. Middle-aged. Haunted. Leaning against the same glass that once nearly got him killed. Too much whiskey in his blood. Too many memories in his head. Thinking about his mother. About that thing in the rain. About the open gate in the field. And the feeling, God, that feeling, like he was being watched. Because he was. Because he still is. Outside, the clouds gather. Lightning splits the sky in silence. And on the horizon, the gate is open again. The air thickens. The wind picks up. And Austin knows deep in his bones that it's coming. The weight in his chest returns. The cold, invisible pull. He closes his eyes. And for the first time in decades, he whispers, "I see you too." Let's hope he doesn't open the window. after a brutal divorce. He thought isolation would be healing. His brother's cabin in Washington State was a perfect escape. A remote hut down a dirt road, surrounded by dense forest and endless silence. It was a place untouched by time, or so it seemed. His brother had stocked it with food, enough for a month, and left him the key. There were no neighbors, no signal, no distractions. Just birdsong, rustling leaves, and a broken man trying to rebuild himself. For 3 days it worked. He wandered through the woods, let his thoughts unravel, and felt something close to peace. The air was crisp, the sun filtered golden through thick canopies, and the world felt distant and irrelevant. He had space to breathe. Hope, once a stranger, was starting to visit again. But then came the storm. It didn't creep in. It swallowed the sky. The news had warned a 7-day downpour, but that didn't capture the weight of it. Rain became a living thing, crashing down in curtains. He lit a fire, dragged a chair to the window, and watched the forest dissolve behind thick sheets of water. It felt cozy until it didn't. He heard at first footsteps on the roof. Slow, heavy, deliberate, not the scatter of raccoons or the scuttle of branches. It sounded like someone was walking up there. He pulled a blanket tight around him and stared at the door. Thunder roared overhead, but it wasn't a storm that made him shiver. Lightning split the sky, and for a second he thought he saw something outside. 3 shapes, maybe, or tricks of the eyes. He waited, breath held. Another flash. His stomach dropped. There were 3 human-sized silhouettes, motionless, mere feet from a window. The rain bent around them like it didn't dare to touch. He stumbled backward from the glass, heart pounding, mind scrambling for logic. Just shadows, right? A trick of light? But lightning struck again, and they were still there, still not moving, still staring, or at least, that's how it felt. He hid in bed, pulling the covers over his head like a child, sweat mixing with fear. Then came the footsteps again, slower this time, measured, above him. 1 step, then another, then silence right over his bed. Lightning flared. One of the figures now stood outside the bedroom window, inches from the glass. Not moving, not breathing, just watching. He stayed buried in the covers, too afraid to look. Then came the voice. Look at me. It was a sound of rain forced through vocal cords, wet, ragged, unnatural. He didn't move. Couldn't. Look at me. No. Something told him, if he did, something inside him would shatter. Then it hit him. There were 3 figures. One was on the roof. One outside the window. Where was the third? The front door exploded open. Wind and rain crashed inside. Heavy. Wet steps crossed the floor toward him. His breath hitched. A shape stood over the bed, water dripping onto the blankets. It leaned close, and that voice, his voice twisted, spoke again. Look at me. He stayed hidden, paralyzed by dread. The thing didn't move, didn't touch him. It just waited. Minutes or hours passed before it finally turned and left, slamming the door behind it. He stayed under the blanket, shaking, until sleep or unconsciousness finally took him. Morning came, or something like it. A dull gray filtered in through windows, but the storm hadn't stopped. He crawled to the kitchen to grab his phone. It was gone. In its place was a wet smear stretching across the counter. Whatever had come inside, it had taken it. He was cut off. He approached the window again. All 3 shapes were still there, rain outlining their forms. Watching, waiting. He screamed at them, begged, cursed, pleaded. No answer. Just a ceaseless downpour and their endless patience. 3 weeks. No sun. No change. No sleep. The food's nearly gone. Every night, the cycle repeats. Footsteps on the roof, one at the window, the door crashing open. The voice returns. Sometimes it tells him he failed. Sometimes it says it's disappointed. Last night it said, it's time to let another one try. He thinks it's him, or something like him. And he knows if he ever looks, if he ever acknowledges them, he won't be the one behind his eyes anymore. Something else will. The part of him that broke. The part that wants to get out. So he hides, under covers, under silence. Because whatever these things are, they're waiting to be seen. My dad used to tell me a story to keep me and my brother from staying out late. You know, the type, old school scare tactics masked as parenting. His golden rule: never be outside after 7:30. We'd laugh, of course. Kids never think bedtime horror tales are real. But he'd say it with this look like he'd seen something. The story always started the same way. It was a dark and stormy night, and featured a little boy in a yellow rain hat who didn't come home in time. I used to think it was dumb, until I called him years later to hear it again, and what he said still makes my skin crawl. He didn't skip a beat. Oh yes, it's all true. A friend told me about it. Said the kid was taken by something. Maybe a man with a disfigured face and disgusting eyes, but no one really knows. I laughed, even teased him a bit, but he just said, "Better safe than sorry, son." And just like that, he moved on. Me? I brushed it off. Just an old man keeping a spooky tradition alive. Harmless, right? That same night, I was making spaghetti for my wife Mary and our 2 kids, Jacob and Sally. You know, suburban life, warm kitchen, sassy kids, a pot bubbling on the stove. The kind of evening that feels safe. Dinner's ready. I yelled. They came thundering down. "What did you make, Dad?" asked Jacob. I smiled. Spaghetti, and no one leaves until their plate is clean. No repeats of last time. But of course, Jacob wanted to play with his friends. Typical. Not until you're done, I told him. And be back before 7:30. You know what happens if you're not. I said it with a grin, trying to sound spooky. He rolled his eyes. Yeah, 7:20, got it. And just like that, he was out the door. I flopped onto the couch, tired and content. I didn't think about the time, until the clock hit 7:25 and Jacob still wasn't home. I figured 5 more minutes wouldn't hurt. Big mistake. At 7:30 sharp, he still hadn't come back. I called his name from the porch. No answer. That's when I felt it, that cold, creeping squeeze in my lungs, like I'd inhaled ice water. I shook it off, told myself it was just nostalgia mixing with spaghetti-induced paranoia. But I couldn't sit still. I grabbed my coat and headed out. The cul-de-sac was empty. Streetlights flickered. Wind started to pick up. That's when I saw it. Jacob's scooter tipped over near the sidewalk. A pit opened in my gut. "Jacob!" I shouted again. Nothing. I checked my watch. 7:29. I turned toward the woods nearby. Thick trees. No lights. Don't go in there, my instincts whispered. But I did. The forest felt wrong. Silent, like the trees were holding their breath. I found signs. Broken branches, footprints, a snack wrapper Jacob always carried. I was close. Then I heard it. A scream. High-pitched. Full of pain. Full of fear. "Jacob!" I bolted. Branches whipped my face. My legs felt like they were running through glue. Every second was a razor against my throat. At 7:34, I stumbled into a clearing, and that's when I saw him. The man from my dad's story. Disfigured. Skin pulled and torn like melted wax. Eyes like shattered marbles. No nose. No lips. Just a grin that didn't belong on anything alive. He looked at me like he'd been expecting me. And beneath him lay Jacob. Jacob's stomach was pierced, blood soaking into the forest floor. I screamed, rushed forward, but the man was gone, vanished into thin air like mist. 1 second there, the next, nothing. I dropped to my knees, holding Jacob's body. His eyes were open, but empty, cold. His skin was already losing warmth. And in the silence, my dad's voice echoed in my skull. It was a dark and stormy night. The police didn't believe me, of course. Who would? Your son was attacked by a wild animal, they said. Probably a bear. I nodded. Let them believe it. But I know what I saw. That thing is real. And it waits, watches, strikes when the clock ticks past 7:30. And now it had Jacob. Mary broke down. Sally stopped talking. We moved to a different town, different state. But some things you can't run from. Every evening I double-checked the locks, triple-checked the time. Sally's home every day by 7 o'clock. No exceptions. I don't tell her why. Just like my dad never told me the whole truth. Some curses are passed down like heirlooms. Sometimes I wonder, what if I had taken the story seriously? What if I'd stopped Jacob? What if I hadn't laughed at my dad's warning? But the past is a graveyard, full of regrets and things that claw at your memory when a house is quiet and the night is still. Jacob's bedroom is untouched. A yellow rain hat still hangs by the door. A cruel reminder. I haven't seen the man again. Not really, but I hear whispers in the trees sometimes. I see faces in the mist. Maybe it's guilt, or maybe he's waiting. Maybe Jacob wasn't the last. Maybe 7:30 isn't just a warning. It's a deadline, a threshold, a contract written in blood and broken promises. So now I tell the story. To my neighbors, to their kids. I say it like it's just an old tale, a myth. I let them laugh, just like I did. And I hope, deep down, that it scares them enough to listen. Because if they don't, if they stay out past 7:30, well, let's just say there are worse things than grounding. And if you're hearing this, maybe you're thinking it's just a story. Maybe you're rolling your eyes, just like Jacob used to. That's fine. But if the clock reads 7:29 and you're still outside, run. Don't stop. Don't look back. And for the love of all that's holy, don't forget your rain hat. Today's story is one of those that crawls under your skin and sits there twitching. You ever hear a tale so messed up it makes you think twice about every little choice you make? Yeah, this is one of those. This one starts with Storm, a shortcut through a graffiti tag park, and a necklace that should have been left right where it was. ML wasn't the kind of girl to get spooked easily. Smart, straight A student, music lover, and a proud atheist. She had a rational answer for everything, even the weirdest horror stories online. But sometimes, even the most logical minds can get tangled up in something that doesn't play by the rules of reason. It all began when she walked home from school during a violent thunderstorm, water up to her knees, soaked through and freezing. That's when she saw it, the message scrawled on the park bathroom wall. Don't call upon him who kills the innocent. Voices, blood. Creepy, yeah, but ML shrugged it off as some angsty kid's art project, until she stepped on something sharp. It was a necklace, silver, pentagram pendant, gleaming like it had its own private light source. Despite every horror movie rule screaming otherwise, she picked it up. It was beautiful, and it was about to drag her through hell. That night she wore to bed. At exactly 3:33 a.m., she jolted awake with searing pain slicing through her thigh. Limping to the bathroom, she flicked on a light and froze. 3 deep, perfectly spaced scratches ran down her leg, blood soaking her skin. Bed springs don't do that. Neither do cats. And definitely not dreams. She tried to rationalize it. Just stress. Maybe she rolled into something sharp. The next night, 3:33 a.m. again. This time it was a bruise. A massive, hand-shaped one imprinted on her stomach. Cold panic set in. She called her boyfriend and stayed up the rest of the night, wide-eyed and trembling. But the worst was just beginning. The whispers came first. Gentle, like a breeze behind your ear, telling her to hurt her cats, to stab herself with her eyeliner, to bleed. She tried to ignore them. She saw a psychiatrist. Diagnosis, mild depression. Prescription, sedatives and antidepressants. She believed him until her body started shutting down. She woke up vomiting thick black sludge and blood, her fever spiking to 103. The whispers became screams. Her body convulsed, shaking with tremors. Her skin burned like fire ants crawling just under the flesh. No water would stay down. No food. She hadn't slept in 5 days. Her body was dying. Every night, new scratches appeared. Her phone mysteriously lost all service. No calls out. No texts in. Not even 911 worked. She was trapped in a burning, whispering prison of her own flesh. Alone. Feverish, hallucinating, or was she? The voices changed. No longer random threats or whispers. They chanted, "Kill the innocent. We are the voices of hell. Kill, kill, kill." They laughed at her pain. They commanded her to destroy everything she loved. Her cats cowered from her. Mirrors began to warp her reflection. Her own face no longer looked like hers. She reached her breaking point. Staggering to her dresser, she yanked the necklace off her neck. Her skin beneath it was blistered and raw. She wrapped the pendant in paper towels, not even daring to touch it with her bare hands. Rain pelted her face as she ran a full mile barefoot, feverish and shaking. She reached the train tracks and hurled the cursed thing into the overgrown brush. The second it left her fingers, silence. No voices, no pressure in her head. Just peace. She stood there in the rain, her tears indistinguishable from the storm water, finally free. That night, for the first time in nearly a week, she slept, not just any sleep, a deep, warm, painless sleep, the kind of sleep you get after escaping something that wants your soul. Her scratches faded, her fever vanished. The bruises disappeared like shadows at dawn. Now she's a college student again. Normal, sane, a proud atheist attending skeptic clubs and living her best rational life. But when she walks past jewelry stores, she never looks too closely. And when storms come, she stays inside. Because something in her knows, logic only takes you so far. You can choose not to believe her story. Most people won't. But belief doesn't change what happened. And ML learned the hard way. Sometimes it's not about what you believe. It's about what believes in you. So if you ever find something that glows when it shouldn't, something covered in warnings, something begging to be left alone, do yourself a favor. Leave it. Some doors should never be opened. Sleep tight, horror lovers. And remember, not every nightmare stays in your dreams.